Over the past year, I've built many K'nex Rollercoasters, so here's my top 10 favorite that I've built. At the number 10 spot, we have Monster at Adventureland. This was my very first recreation and is at my former home park. It has a special place in my heart for getting me over my fear of roller coasters, and now I've ridden it over 50 times. It was also a good first attempt at building with the tube supports. Nowadays, I would consider it on the smaller side, but back then, I didn't have as many pieces. Next up is Project Sphere. The story behind this one is one night I was looking at my bin of tube supports from my last project and decided to build a sphere out of them. Next thing you know, I'm building a roller coaster inside of it. This coaster really opened my eyes on just how good the micro P spinal track is. Before this, I thought it was only good for big, graceful elements. However, I was wrong. You can actually build pretty tight elements with it, and it makes the track super smooth. It's by far the best spinal track, and with the orange track, it makes it look even better. At number 8, we have Banshee from Kings Island. This was one of the hardest roller coasters for me to build. If you've ever tried to make an inverted coaster, you know how hard it can be to build it strong. The supports can be a pain to get right. This was the first coaster that I used the orange connectors for the tube supports. This was so that they stayed the same length and didn't slide down, pretty much ruining the profiling of the track. You can tell that the first elements of the coaster are not as strong as the later ones. For one, they are smaller, but I had also gotten a lot better at building them. At number 7, we have my only tube track roller coaster. This was the first time I tried to build with the classic K'nex style track. Overall, I think it came out great and was a lot of fun to build. I wanted to build a mini hypercoaster and I think I succeeded in that. The profiling of the track isn't the best, but I was able to make the track really smooth by putting long gray rods in the cross ties. Each hill is just big enough for the car to clear without having too much speed, and I'm definitely going to build with the classic track in the future. At number 6, we have my custom Voma tilt coaster. This is my most recent project and one of my best. The main feature of this ride is of course the tilt track. I used a total of 6 motors to get this coaster functional, 3 of which were used for the tilt drop. These clips don't do the coaster justice, so I recommend going and watching the full video on how I built it. I also used a new style of spinal track with 2 flexi rods for more strength. This was because I didn't use the web weaver car and had to reduce speed loss. Overall, one of my best just because of how complicated it was. At the number 5 spot, I have Falcons Flight. This may come to you as a surprise, as Falcons Flight is going to be the world's tallest, fastest, and longest roller coaster when it opens. But this coaster is the only one that as soon as I saw the promo video, I literally started building it. The only part I wasn't super happy about was the finale after the giant camelback. I was out of room and pieces, so I did my best to get it correct. I'm really happy with how the rest of the coaster came out. Building the cliff top was especially difficult because it was like 7 feet in the air. This was for sure one of the craziest layouts I've ever built, and can't wait to build the next record-breaking roller coaster. At number 4, we have my recreation of my first K'nex Rollercoaster. I had this idea even before I started uploading to YouTube, and late last summer I finally got around to it. The layout was based on my first coaster I used the Webweaver car for. I originally built it back in 2020, and the transformation is incredible. I used my newfound skills to add more inversions, better elements, and it was like 2.5 times the size. The company Rocky Mountain Construction, which would be the manufacturer of this ride, is known for taking old wooden roller coasters and putting steel iBox track on them and making them one of the best coaster in their park. This is known as RMCing, so I basically RMC'd an RMC. At number 3, we have Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. When I started planning this coaster, I was like, yeah, it'll totally fit in my room. But then as I started building the lift, I'm like, okay, this is bigger than I anticipated. Either way, I made it fit in my basement after some struggle, and there has to be something said about K'nex wooden roller coasters. They just look amazing. The supports and the hills, they just make a wave of track, and when you put the car on, it just flows so perfectly. Wooden roller coasters are so underrated. My favorite part about the coaster was the pacing, compared to the size of each hill. It's not perfect, but some of the twisted airtime hills were just so mesmerizing to watch. At the number 2 spot, I have Steel Vengeance. This masterpiece of a ride is located at the roller coaster capital of the world, Cedar Point. After my first trip to the park, I knew I just had to build it. At the time, it was my largest creation at over 6 feet tall. The 2 giant Outer Bank airtime hills were one of my favorite elements to create as they were just super big. One of the hardest parts building was the second half, which was pretty much completely submerged inside the structure of the first half. The 2 0G rolls especially were a challenge, as I was mostly running low on spinal track. Overall, I don't see any coaster surpassing Steel Vengeance anytime soon. However, I have built one that I think is better. And finally, at the number 1 spot is Alpen Fury. When Canada's Wonderland announced Alpen Fury, I was on vacation and I was worried someone else would beat me to it. Not that it really mattered. Either way, I successfully recreated the new 9-time inverting roller coaster. What made this ride special wasn't the launch or the records though. It was the unique elements and challenging support structures that it made it so great. Some of my favorite being the Fire Serpent roll and the Skyflyer loop. This project used something like 200 plus tube supports and thousands of pieces. It also had the added challenge of the launch, which I struggled to build, but in the end, now I have a working cable launch. And with that, there are my top 10 favorite K'nex roller coasters. Feel free to let me know which one is your favorite, or any other coasters that you think I should build.